Bleeding Love, a short love story inspired by the song of the same name by Leona Lewis. Chapter 1. Closed Off Heart. Charlotte Clark was the very picture of success, a paragon of poise and control, a bright, intelligent woman who had clawed her way up the corporate ladder to a coveted executive position at a prestigious fashion house. She was the envy of many. She was the kind of woman who, even on a Monday morning, managed to appear as though she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine, impeccably dressed, her honey blonde hair cascading in soft waves, her sea green eyes focused and determined. Her corner office overlooked the pulsating heart of London, but the panoramic view did little to shake the cocoon of solitude that she had woven around herself. Her past heartbreak had left her well versed in the harsh realities of love. A painful lesson learned early, she had made a solemn vow never to surrender herself to the whims of the heart again. Her passion was now reserved for her work, her time occupied by business meetings, fashion events, and an array of spreadsheets and design sketches. Charlotte's emotional fortress was her sanctuary. She wore her aloofness like an armor, a barrier to keep her heart safe from any amorous advances. The subtle flirtations from the handsome men who crossed her path were deftly parried, and the dreamy glances thrown her way were left unreciprocated. She lived in a world where emotions played no part. It was safer that way. One evening, while working late, Charlotte received an unexpected invitation to a high-profile charity event that was to be held that weekend. Knowing the importance of networking in her line of work, she reluctantly agreed to attend. She was often the center of attention at these soirees, her stunning looks and prestigious job title attracting both men and women alike. Yet she always maintained her distance, her heart protected by the invisible shield she had erected. She had built a life that revolved around safety and control, and she had no intention of disrupting the equilibrium she had so meticulously created. Despite her detachment, these events always held a certain allure for Charlotte. The luxurious settings, the glamorous guests, the enticing scent of cologne and perfume mixing with the smell of decadent cuisine, the low hum of voices punctuated by delicate laughter. These elements brewed a delicious cocktail of sensory experiences that had a strangely exhilarating effect on her, despite her usual reservation. On the night of the event, Charlotte, wearing a sleek emerald gown that accentuated her slim figure and golden hair, arrived at the venue. She moved elegantly through the crowd, nodding at familiar faces, her eyes scanning the room as she sipped from a crystal champagne flute. Then, amidst the sea of black tuxedos and colourful gowns, she saw him, a stranger in the crowd who commanded attention, his dark hair, the chiseled jawline, the intense gaze of his piercing blue eyes. There was an immediate physical pull, a visceral attraction that took her by surprise. The room seemed to blur around him as an unspoken promise of passion hung in the air between them. He lifted his glass in her direction, a silent acknowledgement that had Charlotte's heart fluttering against her ribcage like a trapped bird. Unnerved by her reaction to this stranger, she retreated, a whisper of fear chilling her. But as she left the room, she couldn't help but look back at him, her heart pounding wildly in her chest. The foundations of her carefully constructed fortress seemed to crack at the corners. She was falling, spiraling into an abyss of desire she had sworn to avoid. For the first time in years, she felt a sense of vulnerability creeping in, threatening to upend her world. The silent stranger, with his magnetic gaze, had ignited a spark she hadn't felt in a long while. Her mind raced with questions. Who was he? What was his story? And most importantly, why did her heart leap at his mere glance? In the safety of her sleek silver sports car, Charlotte allowed herself a moment of honesty. Her hand fluttered to her chest, her fingers grazing the diamond pendant resting against her collarbone, a talisman, a reminder of her vow. She could almost hear her own heart pounding against her ribcage, each beat echoing the face of the enigmatic man. A sigh escaped her as she leaned against the cool leather of the seat, her gaze lost in the glimmering cityscape of London. For the first time in many years, her well-guarded heart yearned for something more, something wild and uncontrollable. It yearned for passion, for a love that was so intense that it felt like a sweet wound, a bleeding love. Despite the chill of the evening, a warm flush spread across her face. Images of the stranger intruded her thoughts. His intense gaze, the way his lips moved when he spoke, the elegant way he held his drink. She pictured him moving closer, his breath warm against her skin, his hand finding hers in a room full of strangers. She shook her head as if to shake the enticing thoughts away. "No, Charlotte," she admonished herself aloud, gripping the steering wheel. "No distractions, no weaknesses." Yet even as she said it, she couldn't help but replay the evening's events. She couldn't erase the image of the mysterious man from her mind. The invitation, the event, the encounter, they all felt like a prelude to something more, something that was frightening yet oddly exhilarating. As she drove through the winding city roads, the neon lights of London illuminating her path, she felt a stir within her. She was standing on the precipice of change, a wave of intense, previously suppressed feelings threatening to sweep her away. Despite her best efforts, Charlotte felt a flicker of excitement, a wild anticipation that caused a shiver of pleasure to ripple through her. Her heart had been dormant for years, encased in a fortress of solitude and career ambitions. But that night she felt it stir, awakened by a stranger's gaze. Was she ready to let go of her fears and allow herself to feel again, to love again? Only time would tell. But that night, a crack appeared in the walls of Charlotte's carefully guarded heart, and for the first time, she didn't rush to mend it. Instead, she allowed herself to feel, to yearn, to bleed love. Bleeding Love is comprised of 6 chapters. To watch or listen to all 6 chapters, why not subscribe to the Romance Diaries? Or if you want to experience your own real-life romance, why not visit one of our sponsors by clicking on a link in the description. The next chapter is Chapter 2, The Unexpected Attraction.